You can't prepare for the shock of the hour.
The hour here.
No one can make an intelligent decision without being properly informed. This is why this world wants to control the media. This is why media hype can take you up, take you down. So you don't know anymore who's really good, because the media can make a wicked man look good and make a good man look evil. That is why.
Good evening and welcome. You are watching the Final Call News Hour. I am your host, Herman Mohammed. The Final Call News Hour is the partner of the Final Call newspaper and the Final Call online edition that you can visit at digital.finalcall.com. The Final Call newspaper is the most widely circulated black-owned and operated publication in the world and serves as the communications organ for the Nation of Islam. Again, my name is Herman Mohammed, and the Final Call News Hour, you're watching that right now. Today we're going to be coming out of a number of issues. We wanted to stop in and check with you. We haven't seen you in a minute. We have a number of wonderful issues of the Final Call we wanted to touch on. One is volume number 34, number 38, and that reads Racial Terrorism in America. Mass killing inside historic black church comes as blacks grapple with ugly reality. There is no safe haven, safe place inside this country. Next issue we want to deal with is the one I really want to deal with specifically. That one's entitled Justice or Else. Activists, leaders rally around Minister Louis Farrakhan as organizing begins, and bold theme of the Million Man March 20th anniversary gathering begins to electrify Black America. Last issue that we're going to touch on briefly is volume number 34, number 40, which reads, Are Vaccines Safe? Controversy rages about vaccines and whether black children are facing unnecessary risks. Government is not doing enough to protect the public from harm, but still making them mandatory, say activists. Shocking deaths of several doctors adds another troubling layer of concern. Now, of course, those are all issues of the Final Call newspaper. And, of course, I encourage you, if you don't get the issue in your city, which hopefully you have some FOI in your city, that you go to, again, digital.finalcall.com and get your issue. You can get it. It's beautiful the way it shows up. You can have it on your tablet or on your laptop, and you can have access to the Final Call at any given time. Now, the first issue that I want to deal with is, again, let me see here. I want to touch on that Justice or Else issue, because that is the most pressing matter in my view. What we're gearing up for is the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March that will be held, inshallah, in Washington, D.C. on 10/10/15, October 10th, 2015. And so the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is speaking on the theme, Justice or Else. So I'm encouraging everyone to make sure you make your arrangements to get to DC, because this is going to be power-packed. It's going to be significant. It is going to be historic. The 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. Again, we're coming out of this particular issue of the Final Call newspaper. And the piece that we want to deal with begins on page 2 of the Final Call newspaper. So let me read that for you. And it starts out, a powerful message echoes throughout a sacred place as Minister Farrakhan and leaders vow to take uncompromising demand for justice to the United States government on October 10th, 2015. And this article is written by our brother who writes out of Washington, D.C., Brother Askia Muhammad, and it reads, first paragraph, it was a dramatic announcement which almost made itself. Surrounded by faith leaders, young leaders, and thousands of supporters and activists at Metropolitan AME Church, just 5 blocks from the White House, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan announced the 20th anniversary commemoration of the historic Million Man March to be held October 10th, 2015 on the National Mall with its clarion cry, justice or else. In the 6 weeks prior to the announcement, the Nation of Islam leader engaged and inspired thousands of leaders, activists, pastors, youth advocates, hip-hop artists, and entertainers in 7 cities around the country in support of the march. Black communities erupted again and again in 2015 in the face of trickle turned into a river of murder and brutality against unarmed black residents. Walter Scott shot 8 times in the back by a cop in Charleston, South Carolina, April 4th. A little more than a week later, the virtual decapitation of Freddie Gray in connection with his arrest by police officers in Baltimore, Maryland. So the clarion call or cry for justice or else is going out because of these incidents that really started, I mean, they've been going on for some time, but this series of incidents started with Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown. There's so many. What's my brother's name in New York City? The brother that was choked to death. We had Freddie Gray, of course. We had Walter Scott. We just had so many of these, Oscar Grant. We've had so many of these young brothers who have been killed at the hands of police. But not only that, but the cry for justice of else also entails the murder that we are committing against each other. And so on October 10th, again, we want to make our way to Washington, D.C. to address all of these issues. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, of course, is scheduled to deliver the keynote dealing with justice or else. So again, gear up and let's head to D.C. One of the fallout pieces of this whole march, and in the article it talked about Minister Farrakhan meeting with the rappers. He met with 2 Chainz, he met with Young Thug, he met with The Game, he met with Diddy, he met with Rick Ross, he met with so many of our young rappers, and as a result there has been blowback from the authorities, if you will. There's been blowback from the ADL and of Benai Barith. And one article appears in the final call, this next edition that we want to touch on. And I'm going quickly because we want to get through this thing in a reasonable amount of time. But this issue right here, Are Vaccines Safe?, which is volume 34, number 40, on page 2 of this particular paper, there's an article that deals with hate for hip-hop. And hate for hip-hop in particular after the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan met with all of these rap artists. Because after meeting with them, they were ignited with the spirit to get on to the Million Man March, or the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, the commemoration, and the theme Justice or Else. And so they struck out. And so this particular article is entitled Hate for Hip Hop. Abraham Foxman's ADL shows its true color. And this one was written by the NOI Research Group. And it begins, the Anti-Defamation League of Benai Barith has launched its long-expected attack on black youth and hip-hop culture. In its recent communique, its pompous and pretentious leader, Abraham Foxman, provides a marvelous confirmation of the potential power and effectiveness of our brilliant artists and their commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for their people. Jewish arrogance is spectacular. The ADL points with disdain to the massive gathering of those seeking a true justice plan for Washington, D.C. on October 10th, 2015, the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. The Jewish leader decries the fact that Louis Farrakhan has received support from well-known rap artists and others who are helping bring Farrakhan's message to a broader audience. And so the article goes into depth about how these people, if we want to call them that, in the ADL, and also goes into the history of the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover, how they tried to destabilize black organizations, and really how these Jewish organizations and these people who are in the top 1% of those of the wealthiest people in the world control the rap industry, the entertainment industry, the sports industry, any industry that our people are making significant amounts of money. And what they fear is this right here. Let me give you a visual of what they actually fear. They actually fear that the youth will latch on to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and that's Minister Farrakhan with Young Thug and 2 Chainz and other rappers at a meeting in Atlanta, getting ready for the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. And what they have effectively done up until this point is they have shut Minister Farrakhan out. They have whited him out amongst the youth for the last 20 years. And what happened was there was an interview that was conducted by the Breakfast Club out of New York, which is Charlemagne the God, Angela Yee, and DJ Envy, in which the youth were introduced to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and Twitter went on fire. So the momentum for the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March is picking up. It's having a snowball effect. And so we of course encourage you to be there. So again, I just wanted to stop in and talk about these issues of the paper and make sure that we reminded you of the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, and make sure that we encourage you to make your arrangements to be there. Bring your families, but don't come like this is going to be a party or a barbecue. This is a serious matter that we're dealing with, because we're demanding from the government, of course, justice or else. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about while I got a little bit of time is I wanted to talk about, and this doesn't appear in the Final Call, but the Final Call News Hour deals with commentary and views that you wouldn't ordinarily receive on any other media outlet. So what I wanted to talk about was this thing with Bill Cosby. And if you've been living under a rock, you know that they've launched this attack against Bill Cosby because it came out that there was an affidavit, a court-sealed affidavit in which Bill Cosby admitted to buying drugs, Quaaludes in particular, for the purpose of giving them to women to have sex. Okay? Just keep that in mind. And CNN, as well as many of the other news outlets, reported it. And I just want to say, before I present this, that first of all, to all the Muslims who are watching the show, a blessed Ramadan Mubarak, and Assalamu Alaikum. But during this holy month, we read our Quran. We read our Quran apart a day for 30 days. And one of the ayats or verses that we read in the Quran reads that whenever an unrighteous person brings you news, look carefully into it lest you harm a person and be sorry for what you did. So with that being said, I want to say or show you what CNN has reported about Bill Cosby. And the other media outlets, ABCs and NBCs and CBS, all the alphabet networks as we call them, jumped right on the story and reported the same thing. But just let's read this carefully and understand what they're saying. CNN reported, Bill Cosby won't face prosecution for most of the rape allegations against him, but he could still face serious consequences. After newly released court documents revealed that Cosby admitted to getting drugs to give to women with whom he wanted to have sex. His accusers were elated. Several said they've been waiting decades for some sort of vindication after being called liars. So what recourse do they have now after the criminal statute of limitations has passed in many cases? And what are the chances that Cosby could still face his accusers in court? Okay, so that's the information that was released to the public. That is the information that the masses of the public are moving upon without really investigating and saying that Bill Cosby is a rapist, he's a monster, he's a horrible person. And the fact that he admitted in a court affidavit that he bought drugs, particularly Quaaludes. They didn't say that in that piece, but they said that later on in other pieces, to give to women for the purpose of having sex. And so, like I said, these women came out and said that was basically vindication, that proved that Mr. Cosby was slipping them Mickey, so to speak, and they will wake up and he'd be doing his business. Now, why am I defending Bill Cosby? I'm defending Bill Cosby because I don't like when they throw black people under the bus in the media. I don't like when they throw our cultural icons, in particular, under the bus in the media. And like the report says, the statute of limitations has passed in many cases. In truth, the statute of limitations has passed in all cases. Understand that Bill Cosby is accused of doing this to these women in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s. In the 60s, that's 50 years ago. The 70s is 40 years ago. The 80s is 30 years ago, and so on and so forth. The statute of limitations for these particular charges is 7 years. So there's no way that Bill Cosby could be charged for rape. 2, the other piece is, we're going to go over this line by line. Cosby admitted to getting drugs, let's insert Quaaludes, to give to women with whom he wanted to have sex. You got it? I want to make sure you got that. Quaaludes. So the question should be, instead of saying that that's an admission of guilt, the question should be asked, what is a Quaalude? And what is the purpose of a Quaalude? And if you have the internet, which I'm sure most of you do, you can look up what a Quaalude is. You can do the research as to what is the history of Quaaludes with relation to men and women and sex. Definition for you. A Quaalude, a pill, capsule that is a CNS, that's the central nervous system, depressant with similar properties to barbiturates and similar addictive withdrawal properties. It was quickly pulled from the markets in the USA as a result of widespread abuse. Although it did enjoy a number of years as a near top-selling sedative hypnotic before being made Schedule 1 and thus banned in the USA. Worldwide, it is a Schedule 2 controlled substance under international law and thus available by prescription in most nations. Quaalude is a brand name for methaqualone. In other words, methaqualone is a downer, a depressant, similar to barbiturates in most every way, although probably more addictive. Now, if you're not in the pharmaceutical field, most people might be a little confused by what that means. But you did get sedative, you did get hypnotic in that definition, which again, in most cases most people would say that's an admission of guilt. He's giving it because he wants them to be knocked out so that they can wake up and he's on top of them, right? But you have to just dig a little bit deeper, because Quaaludes were famous for being a party drug in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They weren't banned until 1982. So what does a Quaalude do as a party drug? Which is why they were the rage. And if you look at there's a movie called The Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he played a dude named Belfort, Joseph Belfort or Jared Belfort, something like that. But he described Quaaludes and why they used them. And this was the definition. And this is the street definition and the party definition that they were used for during that time when Bill Cosby allegedly was giving them to women for the purpose of having sex. Quaalude, also known as panty droppers. In the 70s, ludes were also known as panty droppers. Makes chicks, excuse my expression, horny as hell, and guys can go all night. A great drug that should be legal for recreational use, like a six-pack in a pill. Similar buzz to alcohol, but not a depressive, and a lot more fun. I'm going to read that again, because that's what Bill Cosby said. He said he used it for the purpose of having sex with women. Quaalude, panty droppers. In the 70s, ludes were also known as panty droppers. Makes chicks horny as hell, and guys can go all night. A great drug that should be legal for recreational use, like a six-pack in a pill. Similar buzz to alcohol, but not a depressive, and a lot more fun. So, again, I just wanted to point out, let's not judge Bill Cosby according to that affidavit when we really don't even know what the drugs were that he was giving these women and why. Because he said he gave it to them for sex, and that's just what the street definition of Quaaludes are for, to enhance one's sexual experience, men and women. And so yeah, an admission that he gave them drugs is not an admission of guilt in terms of rape is concerned. And so that's what I wanted to say to you all. The other thing is, why are the powers that be going after Bill Cosby so hard when you can't, like I said, you can't jail this dude because the statute of limitations is up. You can't charge him with rape. That part is over. So there has to be some other motivation. And here's what I think it is, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, and understand this is just my opinion. This is thinking. This isn't knowledge. I don't know. But it seems to me that Bill Cosby is one of our wealthiest entertainers. And the history that I know of with regard to our people in the entertainment industry is that we make money while we live, but by the time we die, we're usually broke. Red Fox, Sammy Davis Jr., Jack Johnson, Flip Wilson. You can go on and on and on about the examples about brothers who made a lot of money while they were amongst us, but by the time that they died, they were broke. There are instances where entertainers are attacked. Accusations are leveled against them because of whatever stance that they take politically. One such that comes to mind is Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, for the life of me, I could never believe that that man was a child molester. But that was the accusation that was leveled against him in the end, to really take away from his wealth. So we have to ask ourselves the question, like I said before, if the statute of limitations are up and Bill Cosby cannot be charged, then what's the motivation? Well, now they're making moves against Bill Cosby's estate. They're making moves against Bill Cosby's ability to make money for himself. The Cosby Show was taken off of TV Land. It was just recently taken off of another network, just after these allegations just came out, or the fact that he admitted what he did in the affidavit. His bust was removed from Disneyland. They're talking about, there's a movement now, I just read today, where they're talking about removing his star from the Walk of Fame. Now understand that they're not just affecting Bill Cosby's money, but they're also affecting the money of Malcolm Jamal Warner, of Felicia Rashad, of Tempest Bledsoe, of Keisha Knight Pulliam, of everyone who was on the Cosby Show. They're no longer getting those royalties if those shows aren't airing. Bill Cosby at one time wanted to buy NBC. Consider the fact that he had enough money to even express the desire to want to buy NBC. Couldn't buy it, of course. They wouldn't let that happen. But he still expressed the desire. Bill Cosby, historically, and I'm of the belief that a person's good, if it far outweighs their bad, we should recognize the good. Bill Cosby, if you remember correctly, the Cosby Show that premiered in the 80s, a lot of the critics came out and said that the show would never work because the Cosby, or the Huxtable, the fictional Huxtable family on the Cosby Show, was not a realistic depiction of what black families look like. They said it couldn't be that a dad could be a doctor, a mother could be a lawyer, the kids would all be in school, they would be going to college, there wasn't no crackheads in the family. They didn't think that that was a realistic depiction of black family life, and so they criticized it. Bill Cosby went on to prove them wrong by having the #1 show on NBC for as long as the Cosby Show was on. Bill Cosby has done stand-up for years and never said so much as one cuss word. Bill Cosby gave us Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids that taught children morals and righteousness. Bill Cosby is a wealthy man, and I believe that the powers that be don't want him to pass on that wealth, that they want to deplete it before he gets out of here. He's up in years. He's not a young man. And so they're trying to destroy his legacy and his ability to make money so it won't be passed down to the next generation. That's my opinion. And I just want to implore us that let's not do that anymore. Let's not just side with our enemy without having all of the information. And even if it is found that what Bill Cosby did was wrong, let's not be the ones to condemn him. Let our enemies condemn him. We got to start sticking together. And that's why, again, we want to get to Man March. That's why we want to make sure that we're there on that mall for this theme, justice or else. Look, man, that's been my time. I just wanted to stop in and drop that on you. And I know some people are going to be in disagreement about the Bill Cosby piece, and that's okay. You know, that's your prerogative. But this is my opinion on this great show, the Final Call News Hour. Now, I want to leave you, but before I go, encourage you to go to Minister Farrakhan's Twitter account and ask Farrakhan if you have any questions. And I want to leave you with a promotional video for the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. And then we out. And remember, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Again, this is your man Herman Muhammad. You've been watching the Final Call News Hour. Peace. Here we go.
All of the nations of the earth as we speak are angry. They're angry because governments cannot suffice the needs of their people. They're angry because a few have gotten wealthy at the expense of the many. And the unlearned multiply. And the value of their lives are diminished by the rich and the powerful, so that when human life is devalued, that in the eyes of man you are unworthy of the gift of life, then it is easy for another human being to take the life of another human being that he or she has devalued. Black life in America is devalued. Hispanic life is devalued. Even poor white life is devalued. There's a way that I have to behave. I'm free, but I'm not free to rob you of yours. I'm not free to take from you what does not belong to me. So if I will construct my life according to these righteous principles, then between man and man, man and woman, peace. Between race and race, peace. Between rich and poor, peace. We have our beautiful Mexican family. This once was theirs. So you can't say to them they are aliens. That's a horrible word to use for former owners. I see my indigenous family here. Many tribes, but they're really one great nation of people that now must be reunited with themselves. So it's their time now, as well as ours, that God would intervene and bring the body to the top. The government is not rehabilitating soldiers. When they send you away to kill. When you come home, they gotta reconstitute you for civilian life again. Make sure you have a job so you can take care of your family, but they're not doing it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says a woman can do anything that a man does, and the only thing he forbids the woman to do is high as you go, high as you want to. Why would God allow the female to wear his attributes if you can't be a manifestation of that attribute? Women, You got to be set free. What God has put within you must be cultivated, must be developed, and must be used for the advancement of a nation and a world. I said to myself, Mr. President, why the hell don't you go to the wicked police department? Don't you stand up? That your killing of black youth and brown youth is not gonna hold no more. Why don't you stand up? God's world is in need of a truth that will set up a government where everybody can live in peace under real freedom, real justice, and real equality.
What's gonna make you understand what the shock of the hour is? Now that we know who the power is. Insurmountable stress, children with gray hair.